Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. I am Muhammad Ashif Humami, and then I am from the third group of the subject Sociolinguistic. Here, I would like to continue our material that is about code switching and code mixing. I'm here not alone, but the second speaker will be delivered by my friend. He is Iqbal. And then here I would like to read the contents of these presentations. The first is, what are the explanation of code switching and code mixing? The second is, what is the topic means in code switching and code mixing? The third, what is effective functions in code switching? And the fourth is, what is metaphorical switching? Okay, let's continue to the next slide. What is code? We have to know first, because in the title of our material today is code switching and code mixing. So there is the word of code. Yeah. In sociolinguistics, code refers to a language or a variety of language. The term is useful because it is natural. This term is mainly used as a natural label for any system of communication involving language, and which avoids the sociolinguist having to commit himself to such terms as dialogue, language, or variety, which have special status in his theories. Code can be language, dialogue, and style of language. For example, in this material, the speaker sometimes change code. Yeah, code can be language, so the speaker sometimes change the language or switch the language and switch the dialogue and switch the style of language. Yeah, let's continue to the next slide. Code switching. Code switching is defined as the use of more than one language, variety, or style by a speaker within U-turns of this or discourse, or between different interlocutors or situations. Yeah. Code switching, yeah, is defined as the use of more than one language. Yeah. Code switching is used by people can speak two languages. Yeah. And sometimes when the speaker is talking to someone or speaking to someone, yeah, often they switch the language. I mean switch from one language to another language, or switch variety from one variety to another variety, and sometimes the speaker uh, switch from one style to another style. Yeah. According to Holmes, code switching occurs when the speaker shifted their language from one language to another. Yeah, sometimes I said that code switching is used by people or by speaker. Yeah, uh, when the speaker switch their language from one language to another. For example, now I speak English and uh, I switch my language to another, like Japanese or the others. Code switching is switched essentially between sentences. It means bilingual speakers change his or her U-turns into another language when they speak. Okay, uh, in this paragraph, there is the word of bilingual. There is monolinguals, bilingual, and multilingual. Code switching is sometimes used by the speaker, by the bilingual speaker. Bilingual means speaker can speak two languages. For example, I can speak Japanese and Sundanese. Uh, okay, let's see the example. Yeah, sorry, in this slide there is no. I didn't write the examples, so you can listen well. The students, for example, like this. The teacher said to the students, "Good morning, class. Okay, students, today we will study about part of body." Ya. Selamat pagi anak-anak. Hari ini kita akan belajar tentang bagian-bagian tubuh. Ya. In this example, the teacher switched the language from English to Indonesia. Ya. Why? Because the teacher would like to uh, would like to would like the students know the material that will be studied by them. So perhaps the students do not understand when the teacher said, today we will study about part of body. So the teacher switched the language from English to Indonesia. Okay. Let's continue to the next slide that is about code mixing. According to Holmes, code mixing occurs because the incompetence of the speakers masters more than one language. The speaker mixes two or more codes randomly. Yeah. Okay. Last time we have studied about code mixing, and we are going to move to learn about code mixing. Yeah. What is code mixing? Sometimes code mixing. What is code mixing? According to Mushkin, defines that the term code mixing to refer to all cases where lexical item and grammatical features from two languages appear in one sentence. So code mixing sometimes occurs in one sentence. Yeah. For example, like this. Sorry, sir. Kemarin I was sick. So the switching of code mixing here occurs in one sentence. In one sentence. And he also defines in code mixing pitches of one language are used while a speaker is basically using another language. Actually, the definition of code switching and code mixing is almost familiar. So when we learn about them, it can make us confused what is difference between code mixing and code switching. Okay, before continue to the next slide, I give you the example of code mixing. Now you can listen first the example, and to detail the information or example you can see in our paper. Have you done your homework, Hasan? Yes, sir. Saya sudah kerjain my homework. Saya sudah kerja my homework. The teacher said to Hasan, "Have you done your homework, Hasan?" And Hasan answered, "Yes, sir. Saya sudah kerja my homework." Nah, saya sudah kerja. Ya. In this example, Hasan switched from English to Indonesia and to English again. So in this sentence occurs code mixing between Indonesia and English language. And Hasan continued to the answer, "Maaf sir, kemarin I was sick." Nah. Okay, let's continue to the next slide. This is the part of how to differentiate between code mixing and code switching. Dealing with code switching and mixing, people sometimes get confused. with how to differentiate both of them. Code switching involves the alternative use of two languages or linguist varieties within the same utterance of during the same conversations. Uh, and then Hoffman, according to that is according to Hoffman, and then according to Wardaf, there are two kinds of code switching or code mixing. The first situational and metaphorical. Uh, okay, for situational means the speaker switch the language or dialect or style of language based on the situational. Yeah, but for the metaphorical code switching, it will be explained in the next slide. Okay, uh, uh, I watched the video from YouTube. One of the difference between code mixing and code switching is code switching. People switch the language intentionally, but speaker does code mixing without intention. I mean, because the speaker have two or more languages that can speak, so they change or switch from the language without intention. Okay, here topic. Yeah. So the simply explanation of topic is sometimes topic becomes the factor of the reason or the function of switching code. Yeah. For example, like this. Nita Natali said, jadi begitulah ceritanya. Maaf jadi curhat. So after Nita Tali saying like that, Tukul said, oh nggak apa-apa, kita kan care. Ya. Balik maning nang laptop. Nah, Tukul switch from Indonesian into Japanese because that is the sentence balik maning nang laptop. Tukul said balik maning nang laptop because he would like to switch the topic, change the topic. So when the speaker do this code switching, it means the speaker would like to change or move to another topic. Yeah. Okay, let's continue to the next slide. Switching for affective function. Yeah, Holmes argued that affective function is the function involving an emotional side. Some people use code switching in order to show affective purpose, such as increasing prestige to be viewed as an education person. The second, covering inability in speaking in certain language. The third, reducing or evading face. Number four, making amusing situation by using humor. And the fifth, expressing disapproval and anger. For the detailed explanations or example from five kinds of affective purpose, you can see or you can look at our paper. Okay, let's continue to the next slide. The last slide from my part, that is metaphorical switching. Holmes differentiates two types of code switching, situational and metaphorical code switching. Situational code switching can be identified by the purpose of code switching employment. In this type, the speaker realizes the reason why she or he employs code switching, or she or he does it intentionally. Thus, situational code switching has a certain aim or end intended by the speaker, Meanwhile, Holmes defined the metaphorical code switching, or which is known as code switching by people. This is identified as a code switching with no intended meaning. It often happens in someone who has some capability in two or more languages. Sometimes they do not realize that they have done code switching at the time of speaking. It is because the speaker is skilled, bilingual, or familiar with those languages. Yeah. So the simply the simple explanation that we can take from this part is code switching and code mixing are divided into two parts. The first is situational switching and metaphorical switching. So situational switching is uh, the speaker switch the language, dialect, or style of language intended by the speaker, or the speaker realizes intentionally. But metaphorical switching is uh, the speakers doesn't realize, or the speaker switch the language, not realize, because the speaker is skilled, bilingual, or familiar with those languages. I think some of you or most of you thus this situational switching and metaphorical switching. For example, I am from Sundanese and I can speak Japanese. So sometimes I didn't realize that I switch the code, or I switch the language from Sundanese and to Japanese. Okay, thank you very much for listening my